Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're also paying our humble Dandavat Pranam to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada for providing us this wonderful commentary and translation of Bhagavatam, and following the guidance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we are praying to Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told us that unless we can understand something about Radharani within the 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam, then our study has been wasted if we haven't done that. Yadi sevā-vañcitāḥ yasyāḥ kṛpayā vayaṃ labhema sarvaṃ prāpnumaḥ prayojanaṃ dhāmni śrī-bhagavat pade Kṛṣṇa-sambandhi sarvaṃ cha Yadi na jānīmahe tutam Aṣṭādaśasu sahasreṣu shlokanam bhāgavat-oktiṣu Radharanim na vindamatara Nisfalam bhagavat-yayinam Radhikaya kripam vina Vyartasyat sarva-pariśramaḥ. If we are cheated out of serving that personality whose mercy awards us everything we need, including residence in the Lord's holy Dham, and all things connected to Krishna, and if we cannot understand or discover Radharani within the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, then our study of Srimad Bhagavatam has been pointless. Without the mercy of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, all of our efforts are in vain. So we are continuing our reading today from Canto 5, the creative impetus, text 10, the discussion between Jaḍa Bharata and Mahārāja Rahūgaṇa. In this chapter, Bharata Mahārāja, now Jaḍa Bharata, was successfully accepted by King Rahūgaṇa, ruler of the states known as Sindhu and Sauvira. The king forced Jaḍa Bharata to carry his palanquin and chastised him because he did not carry it properly. A carrier of King Rahūgaṇa's palanquin was needed, and to fulfill this need, the chief carriers found Jaḍa Bharata as the most likely person to do the work. He was therefore forced to carry the palanquin. Jaḍa Bharata, however, did not protest this proud order, but humbly accepted the job and carried the palanquin. While carrying it, however, he was very careful to see that he did not step on an ant, and whenever he saw one, he would stop until the ant had passed. Because of this, he could not keep pace with the other carriers. The king within the palanquin became very disturbed and chastised Jaḍa Bharata with filthy language, but Jaḍa Bharata, being completely freed from the bodily conception, did not protest. He proceeded carrying the palanquin. When he continued as before, the king threatened him with punishment, and being threatened by the king, Jaḍa Bharata began to talk. He protested against the filthy language used by the king when the king chastised him, and the king, hearing the instructions of Jaḍa Bharata, was awakened to his real knowledge. When he came to his consciousness, he understood that he had offended a great learned and saintly person. At that time, he very humbly and respectfully prayed to Jaḍa Bharata. He now wanted to understand the deep meaning of the philosophical words used by Jaḍa Bharata, and with great sincerity he begged his pardon. He admitted that if one offends the lotus feet of a pure devotee, he is certainly punished by the trident of Lord Shiva. Text 1. Shri Shuka Uvacha Atasindhu Sovira Pate Rahūgaṇasya Vrajata Ikshu Matyas Tate Tatkula Patina Sibika Vaha Purushan Veshana Samaye Daivenu Pasadita Sadvija Vara Upalabda Isha Pivayuva Samhananango Gokaravad Durvam Vidhum Alam Iti Purva Vishti Grihitai Sahagrihita Prasabham Atad Arha Uvaha Sibikam Samahanubhava. Shukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, after this, King Rahūgaṇa, ruler of the states known as Sindhu and Sarvira, was going to Kapila ashram. When the king's chief palanquin carriers reached the banks of the river Ikshumati, they needed another carrier. Therefore they began searching for someone, and by chance they came upon Jaḍa. They considered the fact that Jaḍa was very young and strong and had firm limbs. Like cows and asses, he was quite fit to carry loads. Thinking in this way, although the great soul Jaḍa was unfit for such work, they nonetheless unhesitatingly forced him to carry the palanquin. Text 2. Yadahi dvija varayeshu matra valo kanu gater na samahita purusha gatis tadavishama gatam svasabikam Rahūgaṇa upadarya purushan adhivahata ahahe votara sadav atikramata kim iti vishamam uyate yayinam iti. The palanquin, however, was very erratically carried by Jaḍa due to his sense of non-violence. As he stepped forward, he checked before him every 3 feet to see whether he was about to step on ants. Consequently, he could not keep pace with the other carriers. Due to this, the palanquin was shaking, and King Rahūgaṇa immediately asked the carriers, Why are you carrying this palanquin unevenly? Better carry it properly. Purport. Although Jaḍa was forced to carry the palanquin, he did not give up his sympathetic feelings toward the poor ants on the road. A devotee of the Lord does not forget his devotional service and other favorable activities, even when he is in a most distressful condition. Jaḍa was an unqualified Brahmana, highly elevated in spiritual knowledge, yet he was forced to carry the palanquin. He did not mind this, but while walking on the road he could not forget his duty to avoid killing even an ant. A Vaishnava is never envious or unnecessarily violent. There were many ants on the path, but Jaḍa took care by looking ahead 3 feet. When the ants were no longer in his way, he would place his foot on the ground. A Vaishnava is always very kind at heart to all living entities. In his Sankhya Yoga, Lord Kapila explains Suridha Sarva Dehinam. Living entities assume different bodily forms. Those who are not Vaishnavas consider only human society worthy of their sympathy, but Krishna claims to be the Supreme Father of all life forms. Consequently, the Vaishnava takes care not to annihilate untimely or unnecessarily any life form. All living entities have to fulfill a certain duration for being encaged in a particular type of material body. They have to finish the duration allotted by a particular body before being promoted or evolved to another body. Killing an animal or any other living entity, any other living being, simply places an impediment in the way of his completing his term of imprisonment in a certain body. One should therefore not kill bodies for one's sense gratification, for this will implicate one in sinful activity. Text 3. Atata ishvara vachasopalabam upakarnyopaya turyach chankita manastam vigyapayam babhuvuhu. When the palanquin carriers heard the threatening words of Mahārāja Rahūgaṇa, they became very afraid of his punishment and began to speak to him as follows. Purport. According to political science, a king sometimes tries to pacify his subordinates, sometimes chastises them, sometimes divides them, and sometimes rewards them. In this way, the king rules his subordinates. The bearers of the palanquin could understand that the king was angry and that he would chastise them. Text 4. Na vayaṃ naradeva pramata bhavan niyamanu pata saraveva vahama ayam adhunaiva niyukto pinadrutam vrajati nanena sahavodhum u havayam parayama iti. O Lord, please note that we are not at all negligent in discharging our duties. We have been faithfully carrying this palanquin according to your desire, but this man who has been recently engaged to work with us cannot walk very swiftly. Therefore, we are not able to carry the palanquin with him. Purport. The other palanquin carriers were Sudras, whereas Jaḍa was not only a high caste Brahmana, but also a great devotee. Sudras do not sympathize with other living beings, but a Vaishnava cannot act like a Sudra. Whenever a Sudra and a Brahmana Vaishnava are combined, there will certainly be imbalance in the execution of duties. The Sudras were walking with the palanquin without at all caring for the ants on the ground, but Jaḍa could not act like a Sudra, and therefore difficulty arose. Text 5. Samsargiko dosa eva nunam ikkasyapi sarvesham samsargikanam bhavitam arhatiti nischitya nishamya kripana vacho raja Rahūgaṇa upasita vridho pi nishargena balatkrita ishad utita manyor avispasta brahmatejasam jata vedasam iva rajasavrita matiraha. King Rahūgaṇa could understand the speeches given by the carriers, who were afraid of being punished. He could also understand that simply due to the fault of one person, the palanquin was not being carried properly. Knowing this perfectly well and hearing their appeal, he became a little angry, although he was very advanced in political science and was very experienced. His anger arose due to his inborn nature as a king. Actually, King Rahūgaṇa's mind was covered by the mode of passion, and he therefore spoke as follows to Jaḍa, whose Brahman effulgence was not clearly visible, being covered like a fire covered by ashes. Purport. This distinction between Rajagun and Sattvagun is explained in this verse. Although the king was very upright and advanced in political science and governmental management, he was nonetheless in the mode of passion, and therefore, due to a slight agitation, he became angry. Jaḍa, despite all kinds of injustice, endured because of his deaf and dumb display. He remained silent by the strength of his spiritual advancement. Nonetheless, as Brahmateja, his Brahman effulgence was indistinctly visible in his person. Text 6. Aho kastam bratur vyaktam uru parishranto dirgam advanam eka eva uhivan suchiram nati piva na samhananango darasa tropadruto bhavansakeno eva para ete sanghatina iti bahu vipralabdo Pyavidyaya rachita dravya guna karmashaya svacharma kalevara vastuni samstana visheshe ham mametyana dhyaropita mitya pratyayo brahma bhutastushnim sibikam purvavad uvaha. King Rahūgaṇa told Jaḍa, "How troublesome this is, my dear brother. You certainly appear very fatigued because you have carried this palanquin alone without assistance for a long time and for a long distance. Besides that, due to your old age, you have become greatly troubled. My dear friend, I see that you are not very firm, nor very strong and stout. Aren't your fellow carriers cooperating with you?" Purport. In this way, the king criticized Jaḍa with sarcastic words. Yet despite being criticized in this way, Jaḍa had no bodily conception of the situation. He knew that he was not the body, for he had attained his spiritual identity. He was neither fat, lean, nor thin, nor had he anything to do with a lump of matter, a combination of the 5 gross and 3 subtle elements. He had nothing to do with the material body and its 2 hands and legs. In other words, he had completely realized his spiritual identity, Aham Brahmasmi. He was therefore unaffected by this sarcastic criticism from the king. Without saying anything, he continued carrying the palanquin as before. Jaḍa was completely liberated. He did not even care when the dacoits attempted to kill his body. He knew that he certainly was not the body. Even if the body were killed, he would not have cared, for he was thoroughly convinced of the proposition found in Bhagavad Gita 2.20. Nahanyate hanyamane sarire. He knew that he could not be killed even if his body were killed. Although he did not protest, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his agent could not tolerate the injustice of the dacoits. Therefore he was saved by the mercy of Krishna, and the dacoits were killed. In this case, while carrying the palanquin, he also knew that he was not the body. This body was very strong and stout, in sound condition, and quite competent to carry the palanquin, due to his being freed from the bodily conception. The sarcastic words of the king did not affect him at all. The body is created according to one's karma, and material nature supplies the ingredients for the development of a certain type of body. The soul the body covers is different from the bodily construction. Therefore, anything favorable or mischievous done to the body does not affect the spirit soul. The Vedic injunction is asango hyayam purusha. The spirit soul is always unaffected by material arrangements. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 7 on Friday. Before we conclude for today, were there anything to share from the assembled devotees, or any comments or questions or anything? Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Mahārāja, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Tirtha Mahārāja Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. First to the assembled devotees, our glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda ki jai. Jai Navadutam ki jai, Mayapur Dham ki jai. Nath Puri Dham ki jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju ki jai. Gangamayi Yamuna Mai ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham ki jai. Sham Kund Radha Kund ki jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Scientific Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Stin Bhakti Vedanta Institute ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari 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 Bol. Jai Śrīmatī Devi Dasi ki jai. Radha Diti Nanda Prabhu ki jai. Bhakti Shivam ki jai. Bhakti Charan ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Kṛṣṇa-sambandhi ki jai.
Dandavats, dear devotees.
Dandavats.